Alrighty, welcome back to the Movie Well Marathon. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Mac.
Heck yeah. And we've finished another marathon. Oh my gosh, look at us go.
Woo!
I don't even know how many this is now. No one's watching this one,
Uh,
so who cares?
I've not been keeping track at all,
Yeah.
so.
But yeah, we finished Pirates of the Caribbean. We should have
Mhm.
finished last week. But yeah, we're on Pirates of the Caribbean. Dead Men Tell No Tales came out 2017. Sorry, 2017. Directors Joachim
Ocean?
Joachim Ronning, Espen Sandberg. Sorry, gentlemen. Um, Starring, of course, Johnny Depp and Javier Bardem, Brenton Thwaites, Kaya Scodelario, Kevin
You wanna
McNally,
know?
Joffrey Rush. Sorry, I'm really bad at these names. Um, let me get some more specifics here. Yeah, we've got Javier Bardem as Captain Salazar and Kaya Scodelario as Karina Smith, and of course Joffrey Rush is back, and we've got Britton Thwaites. I just call him Nightwing as Henry Turner. Yeah, here we are. We're oh, and Paul McCartney for some fucking reason. Um, yeah.
Um,
So,
okay, so I want to point out
uh-huh.
before we leave the credits and all the things, we
Yep.
have Terry Rossio, who has been writing for this franchise from the beginning as
Uh,
one of the writers.
uh-huh.
But our new writer
Uh-huh.
is Jeff Nathanson, and I was
Uh,
just double checking. He's got a few interesting ones to his credit, like Catch Me If You Can. It's pretty interesting.
uh.
Other ones include Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull,
Oh.
and the two live-action Lion King films.
Oh, really? What
Uh-huh.
a resume.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm gonna try to try to maintain some composure here in the first 10 minutes, if I can.
It's a
I
hard goal.
I don't have a high regard for this movie. I take great issue with it in many ways. Where to begin? So, first of all, the opening is almost a little fun. I'm immediately confused with what the hell Henry is doing. Is he timing where the Flying Dutchman is going to be? I don't know. It's not made clear. That's weird how he finds the Flying Dutchman.
They don't
And
explain it, but they
no,
don't always explain everything in this
no,
world. So like, it's okay, I guess, for
shh,
now.
it's really not, but fine. The dialogue between him and his dad is just awful. It's
Agreed.
so bad. Don't look at me, son. No,
Yeah.
you have to go away. Leave. It's like, really? You're the fucking captain, dude. Who cares if the rest of the crew knows he's here? Who gives a
And
shit?
like, for one, I thought Will, as captain of the Flying Dutchman, was supposed to like restore balance and harmony, for lack of a less cheesy way of saying that.
Yeah.
So like, he should have a fairly functional relationship with his crew. They're not inherently bloodthirsty.
No.
They're just
They're just
very
dudes.
dead.
Yeah.
So anyway, I gotta have the same notes where like my first thought is the opening is engaging. It's you can kind of follow the thought process. It's a little understandable, but there's still some puzzling things that go on. My very next note, the confrontational dad, it does not work. Will wouldn't be a confrontational dad. He would be so
Yeah.
sweet on his kid.
It's
Like if he saw him, and let's say the situation doesn't change. For some
mm,
reason, it is unsafe for Henry to be on the Flying Dutchman. He would not start yelling at him. He'd
no.
run up to him, give him a hug, be like, "You cannot be here, kid.
Right.
Get out of here."
It's only been like 15 years since he's been captain
Yeah.
of the Flying Dutchman. I know that technically that's a long time. I get that. But as far as the Flying Dutchman timeline is concerned, not really. Dude, like you're you're just you're still just living your life. Just out at sea, doing shit you've done. Like I don't know. I just his character being so dramatically different is
Yeah.
bizarre to me.
It's bad. It's
It's
bad.
weird. I don't like it. Um, this
It kind of
idea,
tells you where the rest of the film is going, honestly. If
yeah, it really does. And then the what's right after that? Is it the
we get
oh
young Henry.
yeah, grown up Henry, Nightwing now. who's
Yeah.
out hunting pirates with the new bad white British men, and they end up in the Devil's Triangle. Don't love the choice of name. We don't have to get into it. Other people on the internet understand. Yeah, we meet Captain Salazar real quick. Awesome, I will say. I have 5 things about this movie that I like, and I think Captain Salazar is one of them. He's visually incredible. The Ghost Pirates, visually incredible. We are 5 movies in, and we've done monster pirates many, many ways. This felt new, fresh, interesting. Well done. Like, full props. Like,
on that, I think the design of the ship is phenomenal.
Gorgeous.
Right? I do think the CG gets a bit of a hit in this film because
for sure.
Like, the other ones, even though they're older, look more believable in the worlds that they're in more often than not. Whereas this one is clearly like
sets,
drawn in.
Yeah.
But the designs are really cool. The way the ship like eats other ships, the way that there's just like gaps in the ghost.
I love
sailor.
it. I think it's brilliant, and the way that his hair moves like he's underwater. Awesome. I was also one reason why I am so annoyed by this movie, and the audience has no idea how much I'm holding back right now. The teaser trailer. Thank you. The teaser trailer for this movie that came out in like 2016 was one of the coolest things I had ever seen in my life. It's just this beautifully done like string, like violin, guitar work, like the pirate kind of theme, with a ship ending up in that cavern and the ghost pirates running on the water and taking out all these guys, and Salazar's moving through the fire and his hair is waving. They walk through the bars and we see this young man. Anyone who watches movies is like, that's Will and Elizabeth's kid. That's definitely their kid. That's their kid. But then, yeah, sure. Then it's Captain Salazar with his gross, black, bloody mouth, and he says, "Find him." And it was amazing. It was amazing. It was dark. It was gritty. It was interesting. It was mystical, and the movie was so not that. I felt betrayed. I was hurt. I was so upset. I was so mad. Because it felt like a new direction from Stranger Tides, which it went goofier. Stranger Tides went goofier than the last 3, and this felt like they were going to go somewhere different with Jack's like first villain, who is his crew is blown to bits, missing body. Like, we've had our creepy skeletons and our gross fishmen. These are war-torn ghost soldier seamen guys.
And a cool sort of like classic complex motivation. Yes. Like, there are pirate hunters who got tricked by Jack Sparrow, so they're after him. Yep. And yet now they're a part of pirate lore because of the fact that they've been trapped in this situation. It's very cool, very reminiscent of how complex the first few films were with their story building and their world building. But for the rest of the film...
So, Little Will, Nightwing, Hank, if you will, he is now given the task of being... Sorry, what?
It's just Henry.
I know. Dr. McCoy, he is now presented with the task of finding Jack and conveying the message. And I saw in a comment somewhere, or actually, no, it might have been IMDb itself that said... Salazar tells Henry to convey a message to Jack because dead men tell no tales. And then he just told a story. And then later we get Jack's origin, a tale that this dead man tells. And like, I think you could have, it's also, we've had title drops in the Pirates movies before. That's nothing awful. But you could have done something where...
This one was bad.
You could have done something where, like, why can't you tell him? And he just kind of, like, turns, and then the title drops, like, more implying that dead men tell no tale. You know, have some fun with it. Don't just immediately say it and then drop the title card. Whatever. We shouldn't harp on that. There's so much more to talk about.
I think Karina's introduction is pretty interesting. I like her as a character.
I like the potential that Karina has. I don't hate Karina. I think there's a lot you could do with it. I do take mild issue here and there though. So for one, from a real place, I don't feel we needed to do the sexism. Only because these movies have shown like the characters that we're dealing with at large have no issue with women. We've had objectifying moments, but no one is like, other than like the white British guys. We just ended with the first mate of Blackbeard is a woman, and King of the Pirates was a woman, and Mistress Chang was a. So this idea that we have to now 5 movies in explore this like, well, women matter too. Like, you didn't have to do that. And so let's say you do. Fine, you do it. I also take slight issue. Everyone's gonna say she's a witch. Obviously, she's not a witch. That's silly. Don't do that. That's dumb. It's ignorant. And then you immediately show that witches do exist in this world, thus adding a legitimate fear to these people's concerns. You just legitimize their superstition. And it's like, well, we had witches previously. It's like, yeah, not really. The one witch we had ended up being a fucking god. So it wasn't immediately implied that at large there were just witches out there in the world. So when everyone's like, she's a witch because she thinks, like, oh, you're just a dummy. And then Barbossa's like, hey, witch who I hired to help me take over the oceans. Like, well, fuck, man. Who are we supposed to side with right now? Because obviously they're wrong, but these people might have a legitimate reason to be concerned. So like, is it sexism or not? Like, what's going on here?
You kind of have to like take this step by step. For one, there is a moment with Zoe Saldanik's character back in the first film where they say it's bad luck to have a woman on a ship, and that's the pirates. Yeah. And it's immediately contradicted, right? So like, it's not given a ton of weight, but it is in there.
It's also so it's just like Gibbs that says that, though.
Mm-hmm. And he's a superstitious character, so like it makes sense. But that was definitely an element of sexism. Like, guys did not want women on boats. Women also probably didn't want to be on boats on their own, but I digress. Then we have Karina's situation where she is an astronomer, a scientist, amateur maybe, and she makes a study of things, right? And it's the fact that she seems to know things that makes people call her a witch. What's most annoying about this is that it could be done in a way that is interesting and compelling, even having a genuine witch character in the story, because it's not that it's really the witch hunt elements of like sexism, misogynistic witch hunts are not about fearing magic so much as they are about keeping women from knowledge and ability, or simply finding it unusual that women have knowledge and ability, right? So just her walking around and doing something slightly interesting that kind of, she looks through a telescope, and says some things about the stars, and this random scientist, I guess, just starts calling her a witch. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a scientist. Yeah. He would recognize scientific knowledge, and he wouldn't call her a witch. He might be sexist towards her, but just like the kind of like squeal witch, that doesn't do anything for your story or your character. It makes your world look dumb and less rich.
It's more cartoonish than the movies have been up to this point.
Yes.
It's way more
so
slapstick
in terms of and it comes immediately after kind of like a slightly meta joke. I forget what exactly it was, but I was just like, my note right above this is fully drunk Jack just isn't working the way they wanted
same.
to.
I didn't like it at all.
The action is fun. Like, what's happening on screen is fun, but the writing and the dialogue are so off.
It's
Like every
just
time a character opens their mouth, it
yeah.
doesn't feel right. There's no
He's
rhythm.
just
There's
the
no
Mad
beat to
Hatter
it. There's
now.
no wit. Yeah, it's bad, and it's not just Jack. It's like it's all over
Yeah.
the screen. Interactions between Karina and Jack in their first scene together, they're just kind of like randomly tossed together. That could be legitimately really funny, but instead they just stand there while a guy calls her a witch and drop one slightly funny line and then they're on to the next thing. It's nothing about it feels as complicated or as fluid as the precedent set by the earlier films. I mean,
Yeah.
let's go back to this is maybe comparative to how Will and Jack meet, or even Will and Elizabeth, because Will and Jack's meet is a little bit more comparative to Henry and Jack's meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But Will and Elizabeth meet, and he takes her hostage, and there's immediate like tension in the scene. First, he saves her life, then he takes her hostage. He clearly has no ill will towards her, but also like there are weapons and guns being pointed, so who knows what's going to happen? And it reveals character. It reveals that Elizabeth, even while being a hostage, has a ton of like fight in her. There's, character dynamics are introduced. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's really good in that scene. And this
Mm-hmm.
scene, we get nothing.
Mm-mm.
We get cartoonish witch name calling,
Mm-hmm.
a
Cartoonish
bad,
stealing a
obvious joke.
building. Like all of it's cartoonish.
It's not good.
No.
It's not.
If you were
good.
to take me back 20 years, is it more than that at this point? I think it's more than 20 years. And told me they were making a movie based on a theme park ride about pirates, this is what I would have expected. This is what you'd think. It's dumb, it's silly, it looks like it's got Michael Bay elements almost to it. It's whatever, you ignore it and move away. But because it's after a shockingly amazing series for what it's based on, it's such a fall from grace. And that's dramatic to say, but it's true. And okay, focus. I don't like the continuity errors. I hate
really throws me.
I hate continuity errors. It really crumbles my cookie, as they say. It grinds my gears. And I don't know how that happens. You have 3 movies. Let's say 4. Let's be optimistic and say 4. 4 movies that have him give away the compass every single time. 1 movie that explains where he gets the compass, and then you decide to completely change that. Why? You didn't have to do that. Nothing is twisting your arm, sir, ladies, whoever. There's endless potential for fun nautical adventure stories and pirate mumbo jumbo. You did not have to do that. It makes a damn bit of sense for him to give away the compass for a bottle of rum.
Agreed.
And that's what undoes this thing.
They're supposed to be communicating that Jack feels like giving up on being a pirate. And that's why the chase scene is so disastrous. And that's why he, has a crew that's giving up on him, yada, yada, yada. And I don't inherently hate that idea. I just don't feel like this is any kind of good execution for it. The fact, like, Jack giving up the compass is supposed to, like, indicate that he is surrendering his dreams, right? The last time we saw the compass was a scene where he was, looking at the pearl on, the ship railing so he could imagine being there. And he's like, that's just never going to happen. So I guess I'm going to give up the compass. But, like, for that to be the trigger, you inherently raise questions about all the other times he's given up the compass. You could argue he never really fully surrendered it those other times he gave other people the compass because he planned on trying to get it back. But it still raises the question, because one of the things he's done the most in the other films in order to get his plans to where they need to be is give people the compass, so that he can manipulate their wants and desires, right? Like, he does that all the time. Right. And it's not like
Will
it's
the compass. He gives Beckett the compass.
Yeah.
He gives Elizabeth the compass. He gives Gibbs the compass. The compass is taken by many people. Like, I don't.
And
I just
it's
don't.
pretty clear that Tia Dalma gave it to him in
Because
that
she
line of dialogue
says the
they
words.
exchanged.
Yes. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know
So
why they felt the need to do that. It's.
I don't I people when this film first came out, I was not nearly as involved in the Pirates of the Caribbean like fandom as I am now, in the sense that I still had only seen each film probably like one time or
Mhm.
maybe like halfway through. And I went back and rewatched all of them after this film because I just didn't understand why people were complaining so much about it. And I went, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
But like I have no issue with getting sort of like an origin story for Jack
Oh,
and
same.
having him like take over captaincy really young. I actually
Mhm.
think it's really fun, if a
Yes.
touch unbelievable, that his things that he wears as iconic
Mhm.
elements are gifts from his
I
first
love
crew.
that. I
Like
genuinely
that
do.
is super cool.
Mhm.
But why the compass?
You didn't have to do
Why
that.
the compass?
It wasn't. It's so. Since you brought that up, let's talk about that. 'Cause I talked about that months ago in our first marathon because I compared it to Indiana Jones 3. We get a flashback for Jones, we get a flashback for Jack, and we see how they be kind of start out who they're going to be. And Jones gets too much of his stuff in one 15-minute sequence. I think Jack gets the perfect amount of stuff in this one 5 to 10-minute sequence, except for the compass. But like,
Mhm.
he let's ignore everything. Let's ignore all three movies, the other four, and Tia Dalma. Let's ignore all that. He gets the compass, which points to the thing he wants most, which is a way out, a way to survive. It points to the massive, burning, storming mountain range in the middle of the water that can perfectly be seen, and it's a thing that Jack already knows of. The only thing the compass does in this moment is point towards the thing he can already see. You didn't have to include the compass in this at all for the rest of this cute
Right.
little origin story to make any sense. He didn't even need that. Beyond that, I think the sequence of Jack using his piratey knowledge is fun. I think seeing de-age Johnny Depp Jack Sparrow was honestly really cool. It's an example of it done well. What I don't understand and don't like is how young Jack is like perfect. Like he's acting like Jack has been,
Mhm.
which makes the rest of the movie so much more strange and feels like a choice to make him be the Mad Hatter instead. He's got the suaveness, the charisma, the knowledge, the all of it. It's great. And he sounds and acts like the way you would expect and come to find Jack Sparrow to be. And then I love that he gets all these little things as tribute. His beads, the weird stick thing that he has in his hat. His hat. I love that this is where he gets his hat. And this is why he
Mhm.
loves his hat. I didn't
Why it's such a
notice
priority. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't notice the first couple of times I saw this sequence that his dad is there too. It just makes it a little bit bizarre to me that the captain chose Jack to be the
It is
follow
strange.
up and not his dad. It's like yeah, you don't notice it in most of the sequence, but then the last bit where he's receiving tribute, there's a pirate standing behind him wearing a red coat with a great big hat with a feather. That's obviously Captain Teague. It can't be anybody else. So why, yeah, whatever. You ignore that so that the Jack thing makes sense. I like that it's the Wicked Wench. I like that it's not the Black Pearl yet. I like that this isn't the story in which the Black Pearl becomes the Black Pearl. That would be too much Indiana Jones 3 to see every little bit of thing. Like, I love that sequence. I thought it was cool, mostly. But the compass. Why? Why did we feel? I just don't. You could have done so many things. You could have had Henry go there thinking there was something that could help break his father's curse. And then Salazar possesses him or something. And using a human body, he's able to command the ship and bring all the ghosts with it, and they get out of there somehow. I don't know. There's no writing rule that said it had to be the compass so that there was this curse that was broken and then everyone gets out
I
of
feel like
the.
he was cursed. Oh wait, I think we froze.
No, I can hear you. You're fine.
Okay, I was just saying, let's put a time limit on it, right? The curse only lasts for 25 years, and I mean that's probably not the right number of years,
Sure.
but like it's it's a trap, but you're only stuck there for so long. Or maybe because we're into astronomy, there's an eclipse or something that ends the curse.
Why not?
Right?
Yeah.
There's so many things you can do magically to
Yeah.
free this pirate. The compass thing is bad. I think what they were trying to do was indicate that, like, he's trying to give up on being a pirate, and so his past comes and literally haunts him. But, like, it doesn't really work. You haven't established made us believe that. The last time we saw Jack, he was feeling pretty positive about things, and even though it wasn't really what we wanted it to be, he did have the Black Pearl.
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that we start on such a depressed note in this film doesn't translate well at all.
I want to talk about that in a minute, because it needs to be talked about. But just this last bit on the compass, because it's so weirdly convoluted, and it's not a natural progression of writing. It's not like a natural thread to pull, because Jack giving up the compass, betraying the compass, brings his worst fear. That's what the magic does. But in giving up the compass, the Devil's Triangle, like, just collapses. But the Devil's Triangle is some sort of mystical paranormal place, clearly, because lots of people have died at sea and not turned into weird ghost men. So there's something strange and magical about this place. And because Jack betrayed this object that has nothing to do with it, the whole location just vanishes so that the ghost pirates can go get him. But that's not Jack's worst fear. He thinks they're dead. Jack's worst fear is death. So why wouldn't he just die? None of this makes sense. It's so weirdly nonsensical for a series that has put in so much effort and thought.
Yeah.
I really don't like it.
Even their fix to the whole thing is just to go find the one object that breaks all curses.
It makes no sense. None of it makes sense. None of it. Real quick, 3 minutes.
I mean, well, give me 1 sec here.
Okay, yeah.
I don't mind that the thing that will solve Jack's problem is also the thing that will fix Henry's problem in terms of, like, the curse. I don't mind the fact that, like, it's the same magic button, because that's what the show does. That's what this franchise does. It's
true.
They're all after the same thing, but for different reasons. I like that. But for it to be Poseidon's trident,
oh my god,
which is so weirdly lame, and for it to be designed that way,
I know,
and for it's bad design,
I know, I don't like
and
it
for
at
it to be, like, breaking all curses, like,
that makes
just
no
like
sense.
a reset button on all
mean?
curses in the ocean.
Like,
that's bad. And then I'm back and forth on how I feel about it being sort of like Karina's last tie to her family, which is something we'll have to talk about in a second, but you're talking about something else here.
No,
so
good.
like, it's a bad solution. They could have done something better.
I want to stay on this because you made a good point, and there's some momentum here. So I fully agree in so many ways. The trident thing was such a bizarre decision, and that at first does feel like a natural thread to pull and to continue. Magical item related to the sea. We've dealt with mythologies and other gods and whatnot, so let's do Poseidon's trident. But I feel like the way they did it, and if you think about it a little bit longer, get really weird here with the rules, because why is it that the trident undoes curses? First of all, that's such a weird specific power that they just figure out through a very vague riddle, that the trident just undoes all curses across the board. Sure, we're in an Indiana Jones style world where it seems many, if not all, ancient cultures, gods, and deities existed. However, Poseidon is the big water kahuna in the Greek pantheon. That doesn't mean that he's the great big water kahuna across all the pantheons, which you've already shown there's at least 2 others. We have Aztec magic, and we have whatever the hell Calypso is a part of. Like, is that Greek? I don't actually know for sure. I know there's a Calypso somewhere in Greek, but is that Calypso or I don't know. So why is it?
It's not really the Calypso from Greek mythology.
Right. So then why is it that who knows? Why is it that Poseidon's magic can undo everyone else's magic? And fine, let's say it does.
And why is that the one thing it can do?
Yeah, I know. You break it and all the curses are undone. First of all, I didn't think that the Flying Dutchman and all that was a curse. It was a job given by a god. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago, that, you know, there was a time when the Flying Dutchman wasn't a thing, so what was done? It's like, well, whatever, we don't think about it. Except now, you've now shown that it doesn't have to be a thing, because it's not anymore, so how do people who die at sea get to the other side? Because now, it just doesn't exist. And where did Will's heart go? Because last we saw, it was on a box, on land. And why does that bring Davy Jones back? Why does it do that? All these other why? How?
It's real bad. It's
for
real
what
bad.
reason?
I don't mind them having Henry motivated to like try and save his father from not being able to like be with the people he loves. I think that's kind of cool. You can't frame it completely under a curse, because the other films spent so much time establishing Davy Jones as like, he is a little bit cursed, but he did what he did out of what he thought would be love, and then it didn't work out that way, and it turned into a curse because he'd gotten involved with this all-powerful deity who was as changeable as the tides.
Yeah.
And it like it's a consequence of, you know, falling in love with immortal power.
Right. Yeah.
Not like I curse you to live this horrible existence like Salazar and his crew are dealing with. It's a different thing.
We've only had one movie with explicit curses, and it was the first one. That was magic that was designed to be harmful as a punishment for a thing that was done. The other ones aren't. So it's also like Calypso is a god that loves the sea. But is her magic specifically only ocean magic? Because what if she does a curse that isn't related to the sea? Is the Flying Dutchman curse an ocean curse? Or is it an immortality curse that is just occurring on the ocean? It is so dumb. It is so dumb. And so, I don't like the design. I also don't like that it could be broken with a regular ass sword. Yeah. Just a regular ass sword. And
also, if breaking it is how you break all curses, how is it still unbroken? And how did you learn that breaking it would break all curses?
Right. Dividing it means breaking it.
Why invent a magical item, Poseidon's trident, only to break it?
Yeah. Seriously.
It's bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. Also, they don't really make it clear where they are. However, wouldn't you think that the Poseidon Trident probably wouldn't be in the Caribbean? Probably be in one of the Mediterranean, or I don't know. If he's the real big kahuna, you think maybe in the middle of the Pacific, a place that they probably never could get to. But no, it's in the Caribbean.
Well, I mean, they have the stars, but it's not really how astronavigation works anyway, so it's fine.
It's also such lame astronavigation. It's so basic. It is so basic. Yeah. Generations of pirates who chart the stars, they couldn't figure out this stuff.
Well, and I think that's also part of what bothers me about the witch thing, is like a lot of what she does is known science at the time. Yeah. So it's not like she is doing new things in the sciences. She just knows the existing literature. That wouldn't be cause for someone who knows the literature to call her a witch. They might disapprove of her. They might think that she's ruined herself, because that was a real idea that people had back then, that women could ruin themselves by knowing too much. But it's not like people who are educated wouldn't call her a witch.
Right.
People who are not educated might. So I don't totally hate the idea that she was like on trial for being a witch by just like the plebeians, right? But there is, I don't know. I guess the one scene with any sailor who looks at her and what she's doing, they might not know all of what she's doing, but they'd be like, we navigate using the stars. So I understand the basis of what you're doing. It's not magic. And these guys have encountered real magic.
I know.
And they're calling her a witch. It's okay. So this kind of is connected to the idea that I have. I think this movie torpedoes their biggest strengths, which is Henry and Karina. I think they their chemistry is pretty good. They understand their characters well. They're performing pretty well. I wouldn't say that anybody is going to earn any awards for their performances in this movie, but they're having a good time and making me believe it, right? But they, for more than half the film, there's like 4 scenes of just them getting tied to a mast.
Over and over and over.
Like, even when Elizabeth was kidnapped, you didn't do this, man.
I know.
Like, she gets kidnapped 2 or 3 times, and she's almost never tied up.
Nope. Just time and time again.
And it's not like it's not like being tied up or not being tied up really gives her any more power in the scene, because Elizabeth is she's not a crazy fighter. She's fully at the mercy of a crew full of pirates. She just gets to actually act and be the center of energy in a scene. Like, thinking of the very first one when she's on the Pearl for the first time, like, she is totally the center of attention. She has them all hanging by a thread as she hangs that pendant over the water. And she's still at their mercy, but she's able to, like, compete a little bit. You're telling me Elizabeth and Will's kid, plus this crazy, turns out to be Barbossa's kid, aren't able to control the energy in most of the scenes they're in. You're telling me they spend most of the film literally physically bound? That is so boring. What are you doing?
It's because they didn't know what to do with them. They didn't know what to do. They didn't think it through. They just didn't. And I take a slight kind of nitpicky but also legitimate issue. It's they're setting up this mystery as to whose kid this is. And they've already made it clear that we're following the story of Will and Elizabeth's kid. So if you thought for a moment maybe it was Jack's kid, I don't think you'd be entirely out of left field. It doesn't help that her last name is Smith. The name he uses anytime he introduces himself and doesn't want to be introduced as Jack Sparrow. Why would you name her Smith? Even if it's not her real name. Why would you choose that? Even if you're trying to do a red herring, you don't play with it. Yeah, I know. You're not even like playing with it like Rey with like, Luke and Obi-Wan, and she ends up being a Palpatine. It's like you're not even doing that. The Barbossa thing comes out of nowhere and ends up being kind of sweet in the end, because Barbossa's the only consistent thread. Yeah, Barbossa's the only consistent thread throughout all of these movies technically, because Jack has fallen off completely, and so like it's almost sweet in the end. But it's also weird because Jack references that she's aware of the woman who might be her mother, and references that time as a time when he and Barbossa were still friends, which can only be before the mutiny or after At World's End, which clearly ended with them on...
so much older than Henry.
She would be at least 11 years older if it's before the Pirates movies. If it's after, that means that they leave Jack on Tortuga, they come back together at some point, and then fall apart again because it's a big surprise and all that when they meet on Stranger Tides. So, which is it, movie? Because again, with the continuity and all that, Jack's also 60 years old. Between 60 and 61, which is insane. This is so dumb. And I think you could fix this a little bit by not making the movie be about the kids. Make the movie be about Elizabeth, 12 years in to the curse, right? And she wants to find a way to save Will. And maybe it's not the Poseidon Trident, maybe it's some other idea, maybe it's something else. But they do it. And Jack is involved. They need Jack for something, whatever, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But to do the kids and to have Jack, it makes this ridiculously weird, because, like, that means Gibbs is, like, 100. He's, like, 85. This is insane. It's so weird that there's weird and also Barbossa was not a young man in the first movie.
No, I was just going to say, if Jack's 60, how old is Barbossa, man?
I know.
Like,
it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah. It feels, if we're trying to fix it, which that would take a lot of work, but if we're trying to fix it, saying get rid of the kids feels like a backward step to me, because they were so clearly some of the best parts of this film. But you're right that something focusing on Elizabeth with the cast of characters that we have in this film would have made more sense, because, like, these characters are just too old to really
be believable,
be doing what they're doing in these scenes. I mean, you could maybe mumbo jumbo some magic reasons for both of them, because they were both undead for a while, but that doesn't feel like it should extend their lifetime. It just means that they resume where they left off, in my opinion. You know, like,
yeah. If anything, that makes Barbossa almost worse. Like, he was that old 13 years ago at the point of Pirates of the Caribbean 1, which means, sure, he wouldn't age, but then on paper he's like 105. Like, it's so many. The thing is, so many of these issues were things you didn't have to do. You just didn't. None of this was required. There were so many avenues you could have taken. Like,
what we're really missing is a movie about Elizabeth as the Pirate King. And I'm not saying that she has to, like, maintain the role of Pirate King for her entire life. I don't think that's sustainable or believable in the world they've created. The politics of the Pirate King are way too unsteady for her to be, like, the dominant ruling empress of the sea, right? But she would have that title forever. And I think it would be kind of like it only exists for times of great conflict, right? So, like, it would be almost honorary at this point, more than it would be literal, but she would still have the title. And so to imagine her just not spending any time on the sea and just being, like, on land in, I don't know, a governor's mansion based off her dress.
Right, like, what is she doing?
It's strange.
A movie...
I also feel like we see Davy Jones interact with plenty of ships on the sea that are not, like, and it doesn't affect him and his curse, like, at all. Granted, the idea is that he wasn't doing his job, so maybe Will's pretty busy. But if she wants to be with Will, all she's got to do is get on a boat and rendezvous a few times. Like,
yeah, I know. Yeah, seriously. Like, a movie in which, let's say we're 10 years in, 11 maybe. So Will has met Henry. And because Calypso was released, or some other reason, Salazar, whether he's related to Jack or not, let's say he is, he's released. And he hates pirates. And he can't go to land. But oh no, the Pirate King's son is out on the water. Just doing things, just doing regular things. And so he kidnaps him. And now the Pirate King must go out and about. And, you know, Will is made aware of it, because maybe Will does come back and visit because he can. Or she can't get to Will. So who does she go to who might know how to get to Will? Jack. And instead of doing this Mad Hatter, Tonto, Willy Wonka ridiculousness, Jack actually gives a shit this time. We get a version of Jack that is a little bit all business. Because All Business Jack comes out every now and then. And I think All Business Jack is way more interesting than Cartoon Jack. And maybe Uncle Jack
Jack did not make this film.
Sorry?
Failure Jack was bad for this film. Yeah. It did not.
I want to get to that, actually, in just a moment. But, like, this idea that maybe Uncle Jack has come and gone and has been involved, and hears that, you know, Henry has been taken by his worst enemy, his past, that'd be so awesome. If the Pirate King needed help and all the pirates said, like, no, but then Uncle Barbossa and Uncle Jack and, you know, Grandpa Gibbs heard, and they rallied the fucking troops to take on death itself because Elizabeth's kid was in danger, how kind of sweet and wholesome and fun would that be? and magical and
Really cool.
interesting. Like, I'd be so into that. That would be so much fun. And then, okay, coming back now, people complain about movies when they have our protagonist, our hero, our action star be older and be retired. People said a lot of that about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. They said it about Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and blah, 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 blah. They're clearly trying to do a version of that with Jack. He's old. He's technically cursed now because Barbossa had a witch curse all of his enemies, which I think is fucking stupid, but whatever. I really don't like it because failure Jack doesn't really stand out when Jack has never been successful in any other movie we've ever had. The opening scene is him riding in on a sinking ship. The opening of the next movie is him escaping a prison that he broke into to get a piece of cloth and a coffin, and his crew is already wanting to mutiny. That movie ends with him being eaten. The next movie involves him and all of his plans going to shit, and his crew again abandoning him. The Black Pearl isn't even in the next movie, technically, and he's been shanghaied by Blackbeard, and then Maroon's the only woman he's ever loved because she's not he's never been successful. He's always scraping by the skin of his teeth. It's always a mess. So why couldn't this actually be the first time that things are just working? He has the ship. He has the crew. He's more Captain Teague now. Maybe he's not as action-oriented. Maybe he is more a leadership position. He is feeling retirement creep up on him in a good way. He just loves being out on the sea. He just likes being a pirate, and things are fine. And then his past comes back to get him, and he has to whip into shape. Like, why did it have to be drunken, mud-covered idiot Jack? Why?
Well, if we're really gonna have him embrace mortality after the end of, Stranger Tides, which seems to be the implication, then it'd be nice to see him phasing into retirement, right? Where he's accepted the fact that he's not going to live forever. He's accepted the fact that he's not going to be on the sea forever, which comes inherently with, you'd accepting what growing old is like. Maybe he's having a little bit of a hard time with it. Jack doesn't seem like he'd fully think through all of his decisions before making them, right? This could be one of them. But it would harmonize better with the character arc that they gave him in the previous films, where he has been chasing immortality, but every time he's encountered it, he's like, I'm a pass. Thanks. And so now he's no longer chasing that, right? He's like, I've accepted growing old. So you see retirement Jack a little bit, but he's not so far gone that when, Elizabeth and Will's kids gets in trouble, specifically from someone in his past, he wouldn't show up and do something about that.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like you need to give him a slightly more self-motivated reason to go. I don't disagree that he would ultimately help Elizabeth and Will in the situation, but it's very, you'd have to give him a little bit else too. I kind of like the idea that he's not figured out the Pearl situation yet. He needs Barbossa to help him with that.
It's so dumb.
And it's a little annoying, but let's say he needs Barbossa's help with that. Barbossa and Jack, in the first act of the film, would get together to help Elizabeth and get the Pearl back on the water, right? Mm-hmm. So then we get the reviving of the Pearl. We get everybody on the Pearl with Barbossa's ship or fleet, if he has a fleet, I guess. And we use the Pearl to chase down the people who have taken Henry. Like that, it's a little basic. We'd have to do some polishing to make it shine like the first three really do in terms of complex motivations. But that is already a better setup than this weird Poseidon's trident, break all curses, rewrite the compass's origin, failure Jack story that we have.
Also, how cool would it be? 'Cause I don't like what they do with the Pearl in general, and I don't like that when they do it, it's making like, again, cartoon sounds like it's growing, like it's stupid. How awesome would it be if either in the first act or the climax of the movie, they haven't been able to get the Pearl out or whatever, and he does it at a point where he's fallen overboard or he's been dragged down or something. And so he rises out of the water riding it. But it's like the exact opposite of what happens in the opening of the first movie where he's on a sinking ship. He comes out on the top of it and it just emerges dramatically, beautifully, the Black Pearl rising from the water in a way we've never seen but only ever heard about. Why wouldn't you do that? Why would you lean silly for a franchise that is unabashedly cool? You've done cool stuff. The cool stuff has worked really well. So why are we being silly?
The sketch-based comedy in this film really, really wrecks it, dude. I mean, why is there a wedding threat? Why
oh my
is
god,
Jackie
I totally
forced
forgot
to
about
be
that.
dead?
That is so stupid. It comes out of nowhere. It is pointless. It is so dumb. There's so much. I feel like they wrote this drunk. You had to have written this while drunk because otherwise so much of this doesn't make any sense. Granted, there is one little thing I know. All of this went down while he was going through his divorce. So that kind of, like, Johnny Depp wasn't really in it. His heart wasn't in it. Sure. Fine. That does not explain the rest of the movie. The rest of the movie is still a fucking mess.
You could have a decent Pirates of the Caribbean film that doesn't have the best Jack performance in it. Because as iconic as Jack is, he has never been the sole good thing in this franchise. He is one good thing that the rest of the amazing story tends to spin around, right? Like, it's not... You take Jack out of the first film, you do lose quite a bit, but I think you're still left with a pretty good film, you know?
Sure.
Not that you really can take him out narratively and let it make sense.
That's because there's interesting things that apply to everyone else. Like, we get Elizabeth and Will's story set up first, and we find out there's actually this other orbiting thing that is involved in the story. Maybe not even involved, but might be the thing that kicked it all off. Just maybe. Who knows? I'm thinking of other ways that you could have done this movie, and it would have been so much cooler. Like let's say Jack's successful. Not Barbossa's successful, but he is Jack Sparrow, the pirate that everyone knows of. No one can get their hands on him. He's still doing just fine. And he looks good. Weirdly good for 60. And Henry almost picks up on that. It's like, aren't you like 60? And Jack's like, well, yeah, I found the Fountain of Youth. And Henry believes that, but we know that didn't work out. That didn't happen. But it turns out, soon after the Fountain of Youth, because he was spooked. Also, Fountain of Youth needs to happen sooner, in that it happens 5 years before this, 4 years before this, 5 or 4, which means On Stranger Tides happens 14 years after At World's End, which is dumb. But after that, he went back to the site of Isla de Muerta, and he found the Aztec gold. And he's had a piece of it the whole time. And even though it's uncomfortable and terrible, he would rather do that until he can find another immortality option. And there's like scenes that set it up. A couple of nighttime talks, but he doesn't walk out of his cabin. Not so explicit that you immediately pick up on it, but it's that classic M. Night Shyamalan style. You have to watch this again to realize all the things that were set up. And he's been cursed the whole time. And then maybe if things in a different world, we get a Pirate 6, where he does find a believable thing for immortality, and the post-credit scene is him being on a yacht in 2028, and he's just living his best life. There's so many other things you could do than what they did. I'm so annoyed. And we haven't even talked about like the final fight, but it's so bad. It's so bad. It's so dumb. Why does Salazar destroy the British Empire ship? They're good guys to him. Why did he kill them?
He wouldn't.
Why did he do that? There's so many things they introduce in this movie that go nowhere.
At a certain point.
Sorry?
Like, I start with like my regular density of notes, right? I got a good amount on each page. By the time I get to my third page, my last note is just mid. Yeah. Like, I'm just like, I got nothing to say. This is just...
It's bad.
It's a movie that has characters in it that should be fantastic.
Yep.
And it's not.
Nope.
don't kill your franchises like this, guys.
No.
End your franchises. End them. If
Yeah.
you're not going to write a good, complex story on the level of what you have already written,
Mm-hmm.
don't do it.
No.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. There's so many other things to play with. You had a mermaid character you introduced that knows Jack that you could have done something with. You know, what happened to Finnick? We don't know. Philip.
We're just going to ignore the fact that, like, Calypso is back and free now. Like, she's never going to visit us
That's
again.
never been an issue in for 20 almost 20 years. Nothing.
Like, you could start doing alternate history here where,
Sure.
like, the, colonialism and imperialism is heavily impacted by magic now that Calypso is free, right?
Sure. Something. Or other sea creatures. Also, we do have to talk about just for a second. We have only a few minutes left. The island of Star Rocks is dumb because it's just dumb. It's dumb. It was easy to find. The riddle was dumb. Stars aren't stationary for something that was probably put there by a god. You know, like, so it's old. Stars move. Stars die. Stars change.
Not even that. Stars move through the seasons. So, like,
yeah, I know.
if it's low on the horizon, like they show, they do this all the time. They did this in Moana, and they did research in Moana. So I gotta go check myself on that.
It just points at the thing.
Yeah, and she's like doing this, and it's like right over the horizon. I'm like, the stars over the horizon are the ones that move.
Also, she looks up, and they're like above her. It's like the stars won't be there for much longer. It's like, the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, they will. You got hours. At best. Hours. Also, you get to an island covered with sparkly rocks, and you're like, it's a perfect layout of the sky. What? How could you possibly know that? It's dumb.
Like, as much as astronavigation is important to sailors, if we're gonna go ahead and name this thing Poseidon's Trident, which but let's go ahead and name this thing Poseidon's Trident. Poseidon very specifically does not have domain over the sky. Yeah. Okay? Very specifically.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that. That's a really good point. Ooh, bad lore. Bad lore. Oh, that's On top of that, Jack calls it Poseidon's tomb. I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. I don't like what that implies. I don't like the idea that there's just a god tomb. Don't like that. Don't like that the way this thing operates is someone broke a ruby off of an island, and that closed the sea. How did you know that would work? Who did that? What regular ass dude found Poseidon's Trident, decided to leave it there, broke the ruby, got off the island, made a book about it, and somehow got that passed down to Barbossa?
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb.
You know, and there's a lot that goes fairly unexplained in this franchise, right? Like, we don't really know why the Aztec gold is cursed or how it works. We just know that it is.
Sure.
And we don't get a whole lot about the Fountain of Youth either, honestly. You know,
sure.
There are mermaids. They are not explained. They just are. Sure. There's a kraken. It, for some reason, is Davy Jones' pet, right? Like, there's a lot of just, we're going to throw in some mythology here. But the problem is you start getting to a point where you have to have some kind of balance or consistency, right? And if you're going to start pulling things that have existing mythology, you have to use that existing mythology. The Aztec coins, perfect, because that, I lived in Muerta, it doesn't really have anything existing. They make that for the story. It ties in with real things, kind of, or real legends, kind of, but it doesn't. It is a unique creation for the film. Calypso is also, I would argue, a unique creation to the film. There are ties to Greek mythology with that name and with the fact that Calypso lives on an island and is like a seducer of men and stuff like that. But it's more of an allusion or reference than it is a reincarnation of the character. So Calypso is her own thing. Davy Jones is not his own thing because Davy Jones' locker is a real thing. There's this real kind of loose mythology around him. It's very loose, so you have room to work. The idea of the Kraken, like, being his own thing, that was one of my, I don't know how I feel about this, but let's go ahead and just go with it because the franchise is fun thing, right? Like, the Kraken is supposed to be like a wild beast in the sea. You're not really supposed to have control over it. But it works pretty well with Davy Jones and like his power and what he's supposed to be. So we'll go for it, right? Poseidon has a lot of mythos that comes packed in with the name. And you're going to go ahead and use Poseidon's trident, which has even more specific mythos connected to it, because you are confirming the fact that Poseidon looks and acts the way that you would expect him to in his existing mythos. So for Poseidon's trident, one, to be just like a branch of coral with a glowy thing in the middle, lame. For Poseidon's trident, two, to own, like, the only power we list for the trident is that breaking it breaks all curses. That's unbelievable. If Poseidon's genuine trident would have more magical ability, and you'd have more people after it because of all the different things that it could do, right? Like, it controls the sea and all that stuff.
Right.
But the super heavy focus on it breaking curses just is bizarre.
Also, Jack never tried to find it with the compass that can lead to anything you want. It shouldn't have been that hard to find it. Why do they need her? Why do they need a map? He had... Well, no, he didn't have the compass, did he? But, like...
We've already talked about this, but why is Poseidon in the Caribbean?
Yeah.
It's a lame pull. They're like, what's a god from the sea? Poseidon. Done. That's...
There's other water gods. Other water gods that are closer, too, you know? Like... a Kukulkan. That's they added that kind of stuff to Namor, and it worked. It's cool. We're at our time, and real quick, there's too many sex jokes. I didn't like it. There are too many. It was gross. It was unnecessary. It was too much. There was more subtlety with them previously. They've never been clean movies, but it's been a little more tactful. This was just gross. It felt gross. I didn't like it. Jack being a creep on the Barbossa's kid several times was gross. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Didn't like it. This was a bad movie. And 'tis not a whale. 'Tis a whale skeleton with a gross ass wedding underneath it.
You know, we didn't even really talk about, like, Shansa the witch.
It's because they don't do anything with her. They
or
bring her...
Barbossa's crew, or Barbossa in general. There's so much... Okay, it's all right. We can't talk about it all, I guess.
Well, okay, we can have a couple minutes. You know, we go longer at the end of our marathons. Barbossa was interesting, but it is frustrating. I don't like this idea that Jack lost his luck when clearly that whole sequence of stealing the bank, he was pretty fucking lucky because he didn't die and the bank collapsed in a way that prevented them from being captured and blah, 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 blah. Barbossa, yeah, doing well. That's great. The witch is...
Barbossa is a successful pirate, because Barbossa has always been a more successful pirate, like on paper, than Jack has, right? I don't mind that. I also don't mind the kind of arc he goes through where he's like, well, I've accomplished everything, what is there left? And then he meets like a family member and he sacrifices everything for the family member. It's a little canned, a little cliche, but I don't mind it. It's acted pretty well for how little time it's given, how little significance it really has in the story. It's acted well. That's all he's got.
Yeah.
I don't know why his costumes look like they're taken from the dress-up chest.
So extravagant.
I mean, I kind of get what they're going with, but it was bad design, which stands out because of how cool the pirate design is. You put one of Barbossa's crew next to those ghost pirates, and they don't look like they're in the same movie.
No.
I don't know. It's why does he have a witch on the payroll?
It's dumb. They don't do anything with her, and she gets the compass for reasons, because she's magic. He could have just been you could have explained that he was a successful pirate because he had a magic sword and the Queen Anne's Revenge, and he was doing just fine, and he acquired more of an armada. It would have been interesting if the rival pirate gangs were led by Jack and Barbossa, because Jack had the ships in a bottle, but Barbossa had the Queen Anne's Revenge and the magic, and so they both had their own crews, and they were both the captains of the seas, and they led these pirate things, And when Salazar comes back and he steals the king's kid, Elizabeth comes in and puts them both in their place. God, that would have been cool. That would have been so cool. Way cool. There's no version in which this is better than anything else that I could come up with in a day. Yeah, I know that's cocky. I don't care. I'm going to stand by it. I'm going to stand. We both could. We both could write a better movie in 20 minutes at Red Robin over a Coke and a burger, and it would be better.
That's ambitious. We might be able to do it, but it's ambitious.
Please.
I keep getting back on the Calypso idea. I feel like the fact that we haven't really reckoned with the fact that the ocean has been released, right?
I know.
Like, let's do something with that. It does mean that we would kind of have to leave Salazar probably on the cutting room floor, and that would be a bit of a bummer because he's cool. But I am kind of gunning now for a let's reckon with the world we've created. Calypso is released. We have Will as playing the role of Davy Jones. He and Calypso are going to have some kind of interaction. There's Elizabeth who's, missing her husband. Maybe she has a kid. Let's get him involved because that's kind of fun and dramatic to see the next generation, right? If the pirates are doing super well on the sea, how are the imperialists doing, right? Maybe there's a whole new plan being rolled out from some sort of united front on Europe's end because things have been so difficult for them recently. Let's do something that is a result of the lore already established rather than cooking up something new, because you don't really need to make something new for this franchise. We have a rich set of stories already that have consequences that have been unexplored for a number of in-world years now. Let's do something with it.
Seriously, please. Anything. Do anything. I like the Calypso idea a lot. I just worry there's no way to beat it, if we make her the antagonist. The idea of her not caring about them anymore almost makes more sense.
Well, I don't think you would want to make her fully the antagonist. Like, oh gosh, I've forgotten her name, but like Eris and Sinbad, I think is her name. Like,
Eris, yeah,
that's
right.
Not the kind of antagonist I'm thinking of. I'm thinking more, there was magic when Calypso was bound, but now that Calypso is unbound, it's chaos on the open waters. There are sea beasts. There are like unexpected tides. The Bermuda Triangle is like eating a bunch of people, right? Like, the consequences of releasing magic and releasing the ocean to be as crazy and as unbound as she can be. And that would sit well with some pirates, even though they would definitely take draw the short straw sometimes. It would create chaos in terms of like the history of the world. I don't know. There's a lot to do with that. And we just never touch it ever again.
Nope. No, we don't.
Whatever.
I'm done with this. I loved most of this series.
I will watch the first 3 movies on a loop.
Oh yes.
I don't know about the next 2. I don't hate Stranger Tides, but it's not great. Yeah. This movie sucks.
There are some things I like about on Stranger Tides. This one's awful. I hate this. I don't know if I hate this one more than Night at the Museum 3. It's a real toss-up. They're comparable. But this next franchise, I'm very excited to get into. I like most of them. I genuinely do. The ending is similar. So, well, actually, we don't know. Timing-wise, when that comes out, the ending will actually be Rebirth. So, cool. We're doing Jurassic Park. Woohoo!
Ooh, dinosaurs!
Yeah! All right, we're
done.
Bad
human choices.
Indeed. All right, bye.